You've got the words to change a nation, but you're biting your tongue. You've spent a lifetime stuck in silence, afraid you'll say something wrong. If no one ever hears it, how we gonna...
Greetings to all the Grey Area podcast viewers. I'm Ntombi Mlambo, the Managing Director and Founder of Mlambo & Associates. I'm honored to have been invited to be part of this Freedom Day feature. What does Freedom Day mean to me? If you'll allow me, I would like to answer it in this manner by just telling a short story about my early childhood. I remember a day when we were visiting my grandmother in Witbank, yes I said it, Witbank, in Mpumalanga, where it was a rainy morning and my parents left very early, left us as the kids with my grandmother. And when we asked them where they were going, they said they're going to go vote. And at that time, we didn't understand what voting was, so they obviously left to go and vote. Little did we know at that time that that was a very significant milestone in our country, where it was our first democratic elections. So significant that I now realize that it's literally meant so much for people like me, who now are able to run a transformed law firm, where we employ 16 staff members across the 3 branches who are all educated and qualified. None of this would have been possible had it not been for the sacrifices that the likes of Nelson Mandela and the like made for this country to actually have freedom, for people like us to have a place in society and in the corporate world. It's a significant day for us, one that we do not take lightly, one that I as an individual don't take lightly, and one that I know, even for my children and generations to come, will continue to be significant. Thank you.
For me, freedom isn't about doing whatever you want. It's about understanding the consequences of what you do and still choosing to take responsibility for it. I work in a world that deals with risk every day, and you see what happens when people treat freedom casually, when decisions are made without thinking about who it actually impacts. Real freedom is the opposite of that. It's discipline, it's accountability, it's knowing the weight of your decisions and carrying it anyway.
So, Freedom Day, what does it mean to me? To me, it means the right to live with dignity, to have a voice, and to participate in shaping the future of our country. It represents the day of our first democratic elections in 1994 after the end of apartheid. On this day, we are not called upon to only reflect on our history and how far we've come, but we also have to recognize that we all have a responsibility. We all have a responsibility to appreciate the sacrifices that were made by our forebears to ensure that we have justice and equality in the country. We also have a responsibility to play a role in our own way to ensure that South Africa is an inclusive country. I've since learned that freedom is an ongoing journey. So whilst we enjoy the rights and freedoms that we have today, we must all bear in mind that there are South Africans that are feeling left out, and we need to play our own role in making sure that they too feel included and feel part of the democratic country that we are all living in. I first learned of the day back in school many months ago. I've since spent a lot of my time listening to the many commemorative speeches that we get from our political leaders on this day. I will be listening to the commemorative speeches that many political leaders will be giving even this year. Thank you.
Freedom for me is realizing that the way I see things isn't fixed. What I often think is the truth is really just the meaning I've attached to my experiences. I used to walk into spaces with the assumption about what was expected of me and about my own limitations. But I've had leaders who've asked me to challenge that, who've pushed me to question those thoughts instead of just accepting them. And I'm not always confident, but I do have the belief that I am enough. I just don't know what I don't know yet. And there's real freedom in that, because it means I can learn, I can grow, and I'm not stuck in any one version of my story.
Freedom to me isn't something that's abstract. It's something that I've felt in very specific moments. I think of standing at the edge of a waterfall during a hike or during the beach, completely disconnected from emails, expectations, and pressures. Just being present. No roles, no titles, just me. But at the same time, it's important to realize that true freedom isn't just about escape. It's about alignment, being able to live, speak, and work in a way that feels honest to who you are. And as a Muslim, as a South African, as a person of color, and someone working in law and society, freedom means having the space to hold all of these identities fully and using them to contribute. That, to me, is freedom. Not just being free from something, but being free to be. Now, when it comes to who taught me about freedom, I don't think a single person taught me what freedom means. It's something that I've learned through people, faith, and experience over time. But if I had to choose, I'd say my understanding of freedom comes from my faith and my upbringing. I was taught that freedom isn't about doing whatever you want. It's about responsibility, dignity, and justice. It's about knowing who you are, standing firm in your values, and respecting the freedom of others. And growing up in South Africa, especially as a born free, I cannot ignore the history that surrounds us. It constantly reminds us that freedom was fought for, and that's something we have to actively protect and give meaning to. So for me, freedom is both a gift and a responsibility. Happy Freedom Day.
When I was asked what freedom means to me, I found myself in an interesting position where it almost felt as though I need to explain what driving home from work during a sunset feels like. It's nice, but you don't really notice it unless you're looking for it. For context, I am a born free. Born in 1994 means that I was one of the first lucky ones. I still remember my mom telling stories about how my grandparents would say, ice cream at home is just better than ice cream at restaurants. And that was just because they weren't allowed in restaurants. Or my dad recalling how some of his cousins would be able to go to carnivals and he would have to experience it through post-outing highlights because they were in different racial classifications. As a child, this world was difficult to understand, but as a woman, I can see that the world is slowly but surely regressing into a place where not just everyday liberties are being eroded, but large-scale atrocities are taking place right before my eyes in real time. I might not be able to pinpoint exactly what freedom is, but I know what it isn't. And the question I need to answer for myself is not necessarily what I need to do to change the world, but what I can do to stop it from changing back.
Hello everyone, I started articles with Denise in early 1990, and shortly after I commenced articles on the 2nd of February of that year, the unbanning of 33 organizations, including the ANC, the Pan-African Congress, the South African Communist Party, many others, the releasing of political prisoners, including Nelson Mandela, was released. That led on to Nelson Mandela's release from prison on the 11th of February, and many people remember those fantastic scenes. Early in May, the then government and the ANC met and concluded what has become known as the Grote Skeer Minute, in which the parties committed themselves to peaceful negotiations to bring about the end of apartheid. Those are just some of the small developments in our road to freedom which we celebrate today. I remember vividly the 2nd of February because there was great celebration in the streets of Johannesburg. Officers were in the central business district and the throngs and crowds were in the streets, and as candidate attorneys we joined them. to revive a South African phrase, there was really Mafeking in the streets and great and joyous celebrations. And as we celebrate Freedom Day today, remembering, as Nelson Mandela says, that freedom is not simply the absence of oppression, but the adherence and balancing of an honouring of not only rights but also obligations. I look forward to remembering and celebrating Freedom Day, and I really cherish the thoughts of the 2nd of February 1990 when we Mafekinged in the streets. Maybe Mafek a little bit today as well.
For me, freedom is the ability to make choices without constraints. It's that feeling that comes with a conviction that a voice of every South African can be heard and can bring about the change that we so much desire as a nation. So, and my understanding of freedom is shaped by the stories of those who came before us, the stories of those who sacrificed so that today we celebrate 30 years of democracy. We celebrate 30 years of deepening human rights for all. For me, it's their courage and their resilience that helps me cherish this Freedom Day so much.
Hi everyone, I'm Michael Dronderman from Genoa Underwriting Managers. Today, as we celebrate Freedom Day in South Africa, I believe that it means your right to choose, the dignity to belong, and the responsibility to build something better. I hope you all have a fantastic day.
What does Freedom Day mean to you?
Well, Freedom Day for me provides the opportunity to just reflect and learn a bit more about the history of our country, which is quite painful. But that said, it does also just provide us with the opportunity to look and reflect on the achievements that have been attained along the way since 1994 as a nation, because I think huge strides have been attained in the process. But then you also look just around the opportunities. You also look at what the freedom dispensation under the constitutional supremacy of our country. Then we also just, and it also just provides that opportunity to look into the future with a bit more optimism, a bit more positivity as to what more can be achieved by this great nation of ours, as young people and everyone else who can still meaningfully contribute to the building of the nation and ensuring that we all get to enjoy equal platform for opportunities, the equal platform and dignity being shared with greater aspirations for success as a country. So for me, that's what Freedom Day means.
Thank you.
Today, freedom to me embodies the liberating essence of self-expression. As you can see, a person with her quirks, flaws and imperfections, but also an individual who acknowledges that she's still a work in progress. A person that wants to excel, not just for herself, but someone who wants to make a difference in society as an accountable and a responsible citizen. Now, this freedom that I have, this precious freedom that I have, enables me and allows me to practice my faith with confidence and without fear, to stand up for what I believe in unapologetically, and also allows me to walk away from situations that challenge my core values and my principles. But freedom also serves as the most beautiful and powerful reminder of that sacrifice borne by our forefathers who championed equality and justice. And whilst we as a society have accomplished amazing milestones, there's still a lot more work that needs to be done to ensure that humanity's heart beats strongly together in all that we do, and that we are able to foster a society that's safe, prosperous, and equitable for all. So to everybody out there, wishing you a very prosperous and safe Freedom Day. May light, love, and peace be what you find along your way.
Happy Freedom Day, everybody. Today, the 27th of April, we commemorate the first post-apartheid democratic elections in South Africa. It was 32 years ago. I was just a child at the time, but it's really a memory that stands out and that really shaped who I am today. And why did it stand out for me? Because it was such a huge deal to my parents, to my little community that I grew up in. It was really something that shaped the way that I am today. And why was it such a big deal at a time? Because it gave people agency for the first time ever, and because the result of the election gave us representation at the end of the day. And that's what freedom means to me today. Well, it means many things to me today, but the first is that I have agency, and that it's important for me to see representation in structures because it's something that I can relate to. The second thing that it means to me is really that because that event of the first democratic elections shaped who I was, it gave me the narrative that rights have to be fought for, right? And that's the correct narrative, I think, for my age group to grow up with, because a lot of people sacrificed for the freedoms that we were ultimately granted. But I think for the future generation, it's nice to shape a narrative where your rights are inherent. They're not something that needs to be fought for anymore. You remember the sacrifices that were made, and you take from that, but you don't. But you come from a place where I have inherent rights, and I can shape my life according to that. And thirdly, I think what freedom means to me is just this whole week, watching everybody's videos, engaging, having to get perspectives from an industry that I really love dearly, and see what people have to say about issues that don't necessarily strictly relate to work, but issues that do shape the way that we do things every day. So a big thank you to everybody who contributed, and I hope you guys enjoy the public holiday, and happy Freedom Day.